The FNRad Snowboard Podcast is presented by Vans. Season 7 of FNRad is sponsored by Wired Snowboards, the Boardroom Snowboard Shop, Anon Optics, Timebomb Trading, the Canadian distributor of Dragon, 32, Stance, and Sandbox, plus way more, and Tribute Board Shop in Nelson, BC. The Boardroom Snowboard Shop presents the Grouse Park's season opener gathering this Friday, 6 to 9 p.m. in the Cut Park. It's not a contest, it's not a rail jam, it's an event to promote fun and inclusivity for the local park riders. The Boardroom holiday hours have kicked in, so you can shop for the perfect holiday gifts on your schedule. Whether you're buying a complete setup for yourself or stocking stuffers for your family, the Boardroom's got you covered with the best selection of the best price snowboarding hard goods, soft goods, and accessories anywhere. Shop at one of Boardroom's 3 locations in Vancouver or North Van, or order online at boardroomshop.ca. Support also comes from Mount Seymour, Grouse Mountain, New Greens, GoPro, and Volcom Outerwear. Thanks to everyone who supports the show. Keir Dillon is a legendary pro snowboarder whose career on the Burton team should probably be the main focus of this interview. However, Keir and I go all over the place in this one. We do start at the beginning, where Keir began his journey as a snowboarder.
I grew up in Pennsylvania, like an hour west of New York City. Middle of nowhere, sticks, kind of, rivers and cliff jumping and just, all little fun, dumb stuff as a kid. And, I think I was 11. My dad was a ski bum. I had skied a bunch growing up. My parents were friends with the people that owned the mountain, so we were able to get free season passes.
Wow.
And, night skiing, and basically it's like your babysitter, right? Your mom would drive you over, drop you off, know that you're somewhat safe. Ski patrol would keep you in check. And just parlayed, skateboarding into, winter snowboarding.
Yeah. So how young of a kid are you when you start?
I was 11. And, it's still skied and snowboarded. I mean, back then it was like Thursday nights you could go and, it was like post where you had to take the test, but it was still Thursday nights. One trail, right? And then then each year got a little better, a little more trails.
Yeah.
But they blew piles of snow, maybe throw you a shovel. But whatever, you're a kid, right? You're 13 years old. You could care less. I mean, we were like, we had skateboard decks with no trucks on it in our backyard sliding down.
Totally.
So for us, it was all good.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? The last guest, Emmanuel Krebs, he was talking about those snow piles. Mm-hmm. And how, like, the very first, I think he said the first ad for limited snowboards was on one of those mounds. Like they had the boards. It was like early season. There's no snow anywhere, and you dig the side hit on the mound.
I mean, that was everything though, right? Like even like I think back to like 7th year sick video from back in the day, or like Daniel Frank video parts at like Mount Hood, Oregon, which were like curb cuts, on the lanes up there. It was like he filled this whole part in like 4 runs.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was, I mean, that was, I appreciated. In looking back, like, now you have to kind of be in an academy, or you have to, like, move to Mammoth or, like, Park City or someplace, where back then you could literally be from some ghetto mountain on the East Coast because it wasn't that much better out here. I mean, the free riding was, but as far as, like, parks and pipe, kind of all the same. Yeah.
Parks back in the day, like, if you had a solid ice park, it was the same feature every day. You didn't have 10 million people hitting it. You were set up. That's what a lot of people came out of the East.
Oh yeah. I mean, especially pipe riders. And I mean, when I first started, I was racing gates, right? So I was like on that precipice of like, maybe racing's going to be the path to actually making this happen. I connected with Peter Bauer on Instagram, and I was just like, dude, I still have your like 149, like PJ in my garage.
Come on, that's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, that was the time period, right?
Yeah. Did you ride with Seth Westcott?
A little bit, yeah.
He was around your era there?
Yeah, I mean, now it's back when he rode pipe. And then even border cross. I used to race border cross, like border battles and stuff. And
I didn't know you did that.
Yeah. I mean, back then you just do everything.
Yeah.
Whatever, right? It's like, what am I not going to go do it? I mean, it's whatever.
So what's the first board? What does an 11-year-old Keir Dillon ride?
I got a 135 Kemper Kid.
Oh, the best.
Yeah.
Awesome.
My parents were divorced. Gnarly divorce. My dad hated my mom, and my mom's like, "You'll never snowboard." So my dad, of course, got me a snowboard, and
Is that true?
Yeah, 100%, right? And it was kind of like awesome, which is great because I wanted Dina Star skis when I was young, and he got me like some Rosnoff Stratus or something. I was so pissed.
Yeah. So he redeemed himself with the Kemper Kid.
Yeah.
What bindings go on that?
It was the Kemper bindings,
like the blue plastic on black, or
they were. I think they're white, pink, and blue.
Yeah,
like
white,
that
pink,
stuff.
blue.
Yeah, with the third strap.
I had those. Yeah, and you take the third strap off right away. Right away. You put that on you. I mean, with your kid boots, it would be like a hard boot.
Totally. I mean, I had duck boots, right? That was the beginning.
Yeah.
And then I think I had airwalk boots eventually, like 50-pound airwalk boots. Yeah. And I think he bought it at the Army Navy store because then I got the Camper Rampage after that.
Wow.
And then
you stayed Camper for a couple of years.
Mistral.
Those were badass. Oh, what Mistral did you have?
150. I think it was 153, 151. Had like some crazy like.
Yeah, that's George Pappas. I'm talking to George in Denver this week. Yeah, that board was awesome. I rode that board. Yeah, it's fun. It was actually a modern board.
No,
like
totally.
That good side cut.
Had the good P-Tex on the bottom, like the All Blacks. You could like hopefully go fast.
That's super sick, dude. So when do you start competing? You start competing pretty young.
Yeah, I mean, competing is like a real loose term, right? It was like. This guy, Tony Lincoln, awesome human. I mean, helped basically spread snowboarding in the Mid-Atlantic area. We had our USASA, competitions and all the local mountains. And luckily there was a older crew that we would BMX with and skateboard with. They were all probably 10 years older than us. But during that time period, if you snowboarded, skateboarded, or BMX, it's like you had maybe 5 people in your whole town. And if they were younger, you're like, whatever. But it worked for us because our parents were like, cool. Like, oh, yeah, Evan, he's a, trustworthy guy. Sure, he can go to Vermont with them. So it was like this perfect scenario of we had like some mentors and older people that were really there for us. And like, I mean, all the dumb stuff of like training gates and how do you prepare for a contest and, sleeping in your car and not dying and... all the stuff you need an older person to help you with.
What's the first sponsor? Who picks you up?
It was Burton. Actually we watched the Jake Burton film the other night with Annie Latz from Nixon and Mike Hofer, who was my Burton rep. And we were talking about it. I think it was 15 or 14. It was like a snowboard contest. I think it was a mogul contest even. I was like, went up to him like, you're going to sponsor me next year. Super cocky kid. He's just like, oh, really? Like,
Come on.
And yeah, he did.
I love that. That's so awesome.
Yeah, he helped me with like throughout my whole career, whether it was, getting on Arnett, getting a deal with Burton. I mean, just even till recently, helping me with my life. So,
wow,
like a 20-year plus relationship, 30-year, I guess.
And that kid, where does that gusto come from?
I don't know. I think coming from somewhat nothing, and then just the spirit of our sport was just like it was very countercultural. With respect, but still, like, everything was always earned. So it's just, I don't know, free spirit, right?
Totally. Total free spirit. So the Burton days, you get on with the rep as a rep rider. You're young. What kind of board you riding? What board would that be?
I had so that was the year that the Joyride Filch came out. Like, the super sick, like, purple
47.
Top 47, just like,
yeah, that thing was epic.
And my friends got that, and I just got sponsored by Burton, and he handed me a 151 Air. And I was just like... I mean, it's cool, it's free, but like, really, this is like I would have rather worked all summer, just bought the Joyride.
Yeah, and broke it because they all broke.
Totally, actually, you're right. So I rode that for, I think, luckily it was only for like a couple weeks, and then the 139 Twin came out. Yeah, like the classic one with the girls in the bottom, and like that was the year that Burton finally, after the Ouija board, they actually finally started making some twins, making some good boards.
They were a little late to it, hey?
Yeah.
I mean, their shapes were working for them.
Yeah.
Like when you think of that Terrier and the brushy trout and the sword board, they weren't really that functional.
No, I mean, and Brushy's board was sick, but Burton always has their mass amount of boards. So like, cool, Brushy can have a dope shape. Terrier can have a whack shape, but he's dope. Yeah. And the rest of you can have airs, right? It's kind of like, there you go. Maybe you get a Craig Kelly that's sitting in the back of the room from like, they forced on the shop.
They were trying to do that ASIM air too for a while. Mm-hmm. Like there were a couple of dudes that talked about that was going to be their pro model. I think Jason Ford, Jeff Davis. Like,
oh yeah.
They were putting it out there. Like Burton was in the beginning. I don't know. Maybe the whole way through. You see it in that Burton movie of Jake. The coolness comes from the riders.
Yeah.
It's not like he's like super cool out in the world being like Mr. Cool Guy.
Yeah.
He never claimed to be that either. I mean, Tom Sims, on the other hand, when you see those two going head to head in the movie, Tom Sims was, consummate West Coast cool guy.
It was cool to see that because, like, I just know Jake as just the ultimate competitor, right? And that's what was so fun about the relationship. Whether you show up at his house, he's watching a Giants game, and you just root for the other team just to do it because you know he's going to lose his fucking mind. But that was like the fun aspect of it. So watching that and being like, oh, I never knew the Tom Sims thing, right? Because like by the time I came into it, he could care less. He's like, we're dominating.
Oh,
like
big time. Yeah.
So it was cool to see that vibe. But even to what you're saying with the Ace of Air, it makes sense because he was always performance.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, like an Ace of Air, especially back then, would perform technically better, right?
Sure.
So why would you have something twin that doesn't technically help?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, obviously that got all polished out, but
yeah. Well, that twin too, right? So the Ouija twin was like Gooch and those guys. Rippy was on it, I think, too, before his pro model.
Yeah.
It was a dope board.
Yeah.
And then you've got... So that twin 38 is probably the very first board that actually, like, fits you properly and actually works the way you want a board to work.
Yeah, I mean, I was 16. I don't even know if I knew what a board needed to do, but it felt cool, right? It was it had a progressive graphic on it, that all over print, and then two girls on the bottom. The 47 was sick that year, too.
Yeah.
But I mean, at that moment, everything was just working, right? It was like, got the board, got some stuff, met Jeff Curtis, got a Burton ad. Like, everything was like clicking.
That's dope.
And then I broke my ankle rollerblading, and that was a good one.
Are you being serious
I
now?
swear to God, I literally had just signed my deal.
Yeah.
I was at my friend's barn. My cousin. We had an indoor barn, and we were skateboarding. But then I was also like messing around with rollerblades.
Sure.
And I dropped in, and another kid dropped in, hit each other. He fell on me and split my two lower bones.
Oof.
Surgery, plate,
No.
5 screws. My dad's like, "You would never do anything again that you don't get paid to do." I was like, and he's like, "Yeah, okay, you'll talk to me in a year when your shit's still rehabbing." Yeah, it was brutal. It was a pretty gnarly setback.
Yeah, that's nasty. So what happens? You have to take a year off competitions, and everyone that you're at the level with gets better, and you kind of stay the same, or?
I mean, it was so many years ago, but I mean, I had to get surgery. It was probably like a 9-month process. And it just, I think a lot of riders go a longer distance before getting hurt and then having to face it. But me, I was like, oh gosh, like getting hurt sucks. And then like, favoring it and wearing a cast inside your boot and all like the things, right?
Yeah.
But eventually just went, like
you were a kid.
Else. Yeah, like
you're
whatever.
15 years old or whatever, you heal fast.
Yeah.
But that's a nasty one.
Yeah, also just so stupid, right? You're like, fuck, the stars finally aligned. And it's like, you're really going to drop the ball, like, first play.
So you eventually dropped the racing thing and focus on half pipe at some point, I guess, hey?
Yeah, I think it was deep into it, though.
Okay.
Like, I wonder, like, I'd have to go back and look, but, I mean, at Nationals, I competed in racing. And I was 16, right? So John Summers won. I got second.
Right.
It was the first pipe dragon pipe in Pewabic, Minnesota. We were all just like, "What? This is like the future."
Yeah.
But we were training gates there. We did GS, did slalom. Like it was just part of it, right?
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, there was the overall title that meant a lot, and I mean, because you get into it through competing, that's like what. That's your metric for how am I doing in the sport, right?
Totally.
Like I was just talking to Emmanuel Krebs, like I said before. He got a sponsorship, then he just stopped competing, started shooting photos for ads, and that was it.
Yeah.
And snowboarding for fun every day.
Yeah.
Like, so that's the same era, you know what I mean? Like you could go one way, you could go the other. You could get stuck being a contest kid. You could.
Whoa! First off, you said you slipped there twice. One, I would say it wasn't like I wasn't having fun.
Okay.
I loved it. Right.
Yes.
I remember even like
yes.
in not with a home ec. What class is it in like high school? But like learning how to like make fiberglass like braces for like racing gates or like whatever. You're a kid. That's all you know.
Yeah.
So it was a ton of fun. I mean,
cool.
maybe not fun in your eyes, but same thing competing.
Thank you.
Like
Thank
I would.
You. No, that is true, man. I hated the races. I hated them. I hated them. I remember guys like goofing around in them because like they had to make it mandatory you did the races. They didn't say, oh, the racers have to compete in halfpipe. Because if they didn't make it mandatory, none of the dudes would race. But you know what? The thing that I'm feeling this year more than ever is that cool guy thing, it's such a limiter on like people's like, you hide behind the group. Like becoming a part of a group is so fun. But mostly it's so safe. You know what I mean? Like you can go hang out with your guys. And the people that bug you at school, they can't touch you because they can't be there because they can't keep up. And you feel like, all right, this is cool. But there's this coolness thing that I never got. I mean, I look like a clown. I'm wearing crazy shit right now. I have a haircut that's bizarre. You know what I mean? Like I never got the cool thing. So then I would just overemphasize, like, I hate racing. I mostly hated racing because I'm scared to go that fast, man. Eating shit that fast, you get hurt. Especially in those old felt line boots and shit, you know what I mean? But yeah, I always was definitely a pipe snob. Like, even though I never got any good at it, I was like, I hate racing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just whatever was fun. I mean, I think to the cool guy thing, I mean, I grew up straight edge till I was 21, and there was comfort in that, right? There's like camaraderie, the whole crew of all of us. But even when I look back, it's like we were like a different version of the things we hated, right? Because we were championing something so hard and judging people so hard for their choices, yet, right? It's almost like there's like a proudness in it that's kind of like sickening when you look back on it. You're like, whoa, did we really think we were that cool because we weren't drinking, right? So we're going to judge people. And like, and there's people that take it to the extreme of like, you know, slashing tires at parties. You're like, really? You have that much hate inside you? So I don't know. I guess even today, like to me, it's less about cool. It's just, fuck, what is fun?
There you go. Yeah, that was always kind of my vibe.
Because snowboarding wasn't cool when it started.
Oh, God,
right?
no.
And there's years, even just recently, I think that it wasn't that cool. Right? So it's like, what is cool? Right. To me, I don't know.
Well, being with the cool guys, I mean, for me, it feels good. When I see Jamie Lynn at Mount Baker, and then I'm hanging with Jamie Lynn at Mount Baker, I feel cool. But the only thing that makes that guy cool is he doesn't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Like he would hang out with anybody.
Totally.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, but yeah, I mean, they're definitely in every sport I've ever done, which is just really skateboarding and snowboarding. There's all these rules to this freedom, to this free sport. You know what I mean? Don't have a Euro stance. Don't have a duck stance. Straight across. You don't wear your gloves over your jacket. Wear them under your jacket. Don't wear gloves at all. Totally. You know what I mean? Like and in skateboarding, it's like don't ride a longboard. Don't have soft wheels. Oh my God! Don't ride anything other than indies, but don't ride them too tight. You know all these things that it's like just once you grow up, you realize I just do what's fun.
Or you can realize in the middle.
Yes.
I mean, like even just think like I saw a post recently, someone shitting on Sean's stance. And it was like, I forget the comment, but it was just like really? Like, who fucking cares?
Who cares?
Right? Like,
yeah, who cares? How could you possibly care what his stance is? Like, unless you knew him personally or something?
But even if you know him, like, it's clearly working.
Yeah, it's working.
And if it's not working, whatever, that's on him, like, whatever. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, we're so divided, which is engineered from what I understand, totally. Right? Like it's engineered through the Facebook algorithm amplifying outrage, right? Like for engagement. I think that's not up for debate. That's like the way that it's working right now. And you see it in comments. Oh my God, you know? And I had my first negative comment the other day, like pretty long one. I'm reading it, and it was about Donna. You guys are all on the wrong side of whatever's going on. You're spreading hate with your Black Lives Matters and all these things that are engineered to divide us. I was like, what do I do? I just reached out to the guy, like personally. Yeah. I was like, I want to send him a message. I had to request to be his buddy. I don't know that he's got back to me yet. I don't want to do it in the comments because I don't want that kind of, like, I don't want to promote that kind of engagement. You know what I mean? Like, hey, man, you're totally have your opinion. But I mean, you're saying shit about me that I'm like, you don't even know me, man. Like, what are you talking about? Like, let's have a conversation. Yeah. Why are you so mad? Actually, I landed on, I'm so flattered that dude thinks I've got enough engagement and listeners that he's going to, like, comment in my shit. Like, right on, dude.
Totally.
Like, have at her. Yeah. But, like, the whole Donna thing, like, you were close with the family, right? Mm-hmm. Like, they were notoriously available for their team through your era, especially. Like, if you went to Burton, you're going to be hanging with those guys. Yeah, I mean, well, we wouldn't go if we weren't, right? but no, I mean, I had keys to Jake's house in Long Island and access to his car or whatever, right? I think that was one that he was aware, at least in my opinion, he was aware of his competitive nature and the brutality of things. Where even, you know, for one of my contract negotiations, we were there for the roundtables, and it was like a week-long process. And, you know, basically the one person's telling me that I'm done, you know, and then I'm supposed to be present. And he was like, hey, if you want to, like, take my car, go see your mom, cool. Like, you know, here's the keys to the house. Like, I mean, it was a brutal negotiation, but it was still like a human aspect to it, right? And there are other parts that I wish, you know, it'd be cool to see more support for people in the industry past, right? Like, I think there's a lot of, like, there's not a lot of legends in our sport because it's an expensive, like, hobby after you're being paid, right? It's like skateboarding where, like, you know, you can show up to a city and, you know, just hang. It's different. Do I think it'd be cool to support that more? Yes. Yeah. But whatever, it is a business, so. I think that we hit the ground in the wrong way. The more that I look at the industry from way back then, I think there were innovators and there were people that were making it happen. And right away, in every direction, there were, like, money makers. Like, let's make a magazine that showcases snowboarding and sells ads. You know what I mean? Like, but you needed that, though. Yeah, you need it. I mean, sure. I had an interview with Jake, and we did, like, a 6-hour interview. Wow. It was awesome where he's just going through and just talking. He's like, dude, it's like when I was trying to grow this, and he talked a little bit about it in the movie where, like, he's like, I was trying to grow this, and I'm going to ski mags, and they're like, no, we won't take your money to run ads. He's like, I'm trying to, like, grow a sport here, and, like, what the hell, you won't accept my money? They're like, no, it's a waste, right? So, like, I think there are elements where you have to develop the industry around it, and I don't know, you need cash for it to work. Yes, right. Like, everyone shits on drinks. Like, I remember I rode for Pepsi / Sobe, one of the first probably people. Me and why am I spacing his name? But anyway, this was a 6-figure deal that helped me do what I wanted to do. Holy shit! Right? It was like and they paid me for 10 years. So it was Jesus. Like, and nowadays drinks are normal, but back then it was, like, super uncool. And I was like, it's super uncool to be broke. Did you have, like, a patch? It's way less cool to be super broke. Being broke sucks. But as a spokesperson for Pepsi. But it was Sobe beverages. What's Sobe? I don't even know. It's like a drink out of South Beach that got bought by Pepsi. Yeah, like SOBE. Yeah. It's got, like, every headphone that you ever saw me wear, they supported. They, like, would do anything for me. Longtime friends. Z-Trip, if you know him as a DJ, he was part of them. I mean, they did cool stuff. It just wasn't technically cool by our industry's judgmental standards. That's cool that we're having this conversation about it then, because that's kind of, because a lot of people, I used to shit on them too. Same. Like, oh, you got an energy drink sponsor. Meanwhile, I drink energy drinks every day, dude, at work. Like, I'm such a hypocrite. Energy drinks, I just don't want my kids to drink them. That's the only thing. Totally. So then video game guys don't get endorsed by energy drinks because then my kids will see them and think they're cool. I don't even know what the hell is marketing. I don't know who's marketing to my kids. You know what I mean? Everyone. Like, I don't know what they're, like, who's getting through. Like, who is getting through to my kids? Like, what do my kids think is cool? That is definitely just, like... How old are they? 22 and 18. Oh, wow. Yeah. Pretty much... They're on. They're fully cooked. That's... Okay, so the heyday of Keir Dillon is half-pipe competition, so, right? Tried to get there before, but... Yeah, like, I mean, it's... Pretty much. I mean, you're from the East Coast, right? I mean, there was definitely no backcountry riding. There was, like, I mean, we were riding golf courses in mellow East Coast resorts. And the pipe, at least, was something that was, especially as we got a little older, was something that was truly created and able to be performed on. You know, outside of the, like,
curb cuts on a hill, like groomers. Like there were no like parks really.
Right.
So it was a place where you could actually just get better. Like for me, whether it was skateboarding, BMX, snowboarding, I just wanted to always get better. Like push myself, fall, like improve, create the impossible. Like that's what I loved about action sports. I think even today, like when I watch it, it's mind blowing because I remember like intentionally sitting and being like, where could snowboarding go? And I'm sure all of us do, we do it.
Yeah.
And just to see that every year it gets that much more progressive and that much, athletes get that much better. And, like a lot of people are like, oh, too much spinning. I watch people spin, and to me, it's still smoother than I've ever seen anyone ever spin.
It's insane, right?
Like, to me, when you're like, oh, like, back to Jamie Lynn, like, oh, it's not like Jamie Lynn's threes. It's like, go watch his 360s. Like, it's off a 10-foot kicker, and it's not that smooth.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
Like, I just saw that kid Rennie doing a 1980 or whatever the heck it was.
Yeah.
Probably as smooth as I've ever seen a spin in my entire life, right? Like
they're good at snowboarding, man.
I mean, I don't particularly love it for selfishly. I don't love where the sport has gone because I would have loved for my kids to do it, and now as a parent, it's tough to be like, cool, go sign up for that. Like, do I want them to do it and have fun? Yes, but I would be scared out of my mind if my daughter's like, you know what, I'm going for this, Dad. Yeah, I'd be like, oh God.
Yeah. I noticed that myself, right, with my own kids. Like, I thought that I could coach them in the park.
Yeah.
But, like, when they're standing at the top of the in-run going, from here straight? Like, really? And I'm thinking, like, I don't know. I don't want them to break their arm, and then it's my fault that they, you know what I mean? You totally got this, and then they're badly hurt. I'm like, I don't have that in me as a dad to, like, they need to find that themselves. I can just bring them to the hill, and they can ride around. And if they get to the point where they want to jump off shit, then good. I don't want to be there saying, no, you can do this. This is the next thing for you. Yeah. Because you're going to hit that rail or whatever. You know what I mean? It's totally, I mean, that's what you want for your kids, is them to find something that they can be as passionate about as we were about snowboarding, right? Yeah. Like, you got your entire adult start in this group of, like, epic dudes traveling around to all these incredible places. What was that like? Like, who was the little army of half pipe riders that you would travel with or would compete against and hang out with?
Yeah. I mean, it's been so long, but I mean, first it's your local crew, right? It's your local mountain, and then even that has the posses, and then from there it's like, okay, we're gonna go compete against Vermont. So that's kind of like, then all the people that you didn't like in your local crew then became kind of part of it because you're taking on the East Coast, right? Totally. Vermont. And then that's almost like, that continues on. But for me, I was lucky, like, whether it was Jeff Brushy, whether it's Trevor Andrew, whether it's Ross Powers, like, there was a lot of the older guard that had grown up snowboard, like, half-pipe riding that still had, like, their, like, fingers in it that could, like, like, I remember, like, driving around for 2 years with Brush in his van, like, going to contests because he wouldn't fly, right? It was like, fuck, we're like with Brush right now.
No way.
Like, it's just like, we're like Joe Curtis, or just like a lot of like older kind of guys that just kind of teach you how to act right and how to function and just how to like look at things. And then Trevor and I were just like super competitive and always trying to one up each other, same age, same boards, same everything, right? Like, just but it was cool, like that camaraderie that like makes you better. I don't know, it's like it becomes a blur. Like, when I look back now, it's I'll talk to like some friends in the, like, remember a trip from Europe, like, not like snowboard like pro, but like trips, like, oh yeah, I went to like St. Moritz and I stayed here, and I'm like, dude, we went to St. Moritz like probably 50 times. I can't remember one thing about it except for the name, right? It's kind of like, oh my god, it's such a waste, right? Because you're so tunnel vision of just, for me, it was always just like wanting to get better, wanting to land a shot, like get a shot, land a trick, whatever it is, like very just hyper focused. It didn't matter if we were in Europe or in Japan or wherever. You were just kind of there doing it, right? Looking for a pipe that actually worked. Totally.
So off the plane to your hotel room, get your gear ready, ride all day, back to the hotel room.
Yeah, and some debauchery along the way, I'm sure.
Yeah, so what happens when you turn 21? Why did you decide not to be straight edge anymore?
I don't know if it was... I mean, I'm sure like anything, right? It's when I was growing up, it was the influence of the older kids. And then as I'm traveling now, it's more, you're being exposed to it. I also got into like progressive house, which is pretty much techno, which is pretty much trance. and that's just a straight line towards drugs, right? Like New York City raves is like as fast line as you can go that way. But it was, I think for me, I was a pretty shy. Like I look at my son now, and he seems like very shy and like reserved, and I think a lot of me was that way, right? Like it's just what I was exposed to, and having like I was shy probably, and I think doing drugs and drinking and just entering into that a little bit was like, oh wow, I can actually like open up a little bit, and I even to this day, like it was like anything, it's a gift and a curse, right? There's a lot of good, I think, that came from it, and just me looking at snowboarding, looking at my career and dreaming and visualizing, and they were all helpers for that. Like it's
of course.
So I don't know. I think it's also part of getting older, right? It's especially as a kid that's then starting to make money, and you really the training wheels are off. My parents were always pretty like, do whatever you want, just like literally don't go to jail, please. Don't get a piercing, right? Like that was kind of like the rules. So when you're functioning off of that and you're somewhat of a good kid, you can dance into things pretty easily, right? Because you don't feel like you're going to get judged, because you're not going to get judged. Like, not by my parents, and your friends usually you're with, they're not judging you because they're the ones doing it, right?
Yeah,
so
totally.
It's like, I don't know.
Yeah. All right. How does Friends start? What's that story?
So, I mean, I think like anything, there's multiple inputs, right, that bring it to life. For me, I had started a company called Dillon Design years before. I just always wanted to create something, right? Like whether it's t-shirt company, sticker company, whatever it was. And then, at least the way I remember it, it was X Games, myself and Danny Davis. We didn't make it to the finals. We're at the Little Nell, just sitting there watching the finals on TV, like, what the fuck? This sucks. And we just started talking about, like, hey, let's like do a company, right? Like, and it was, we came up with the name Friends. I think he came up with the name Friends because we wanted something to just symbolize like crew. We'd already been riding together with like Mason and Jack Matrani and Luke and all them. But it was more like just a formulation of like, we could actually do something. But it was basically a glorified sticker company, right? I mean, it's all like, it's like, cool, we got some stickers. We had like made like an ape shirt that said Friends on it, and made some tie dye, and that was it. And it was like, it became more of just a philosophy, right? Of just like, there's no I in Friends, live life to the fullest, hang out with like-minded people, right? We were all like traveling. It was like this, I think for a lot of us, it was like this, money had really started to come in. We could see how it could change people. We could see how it would affect us, and also like competing. It's like if we show up to the contest and like I win and if I win, maybe I get a pro model. It's like real stuff, right? So it was our way of like, I think, creating a framework to still function and live within the realm of like, we're making money, but we can like still stay pure to why we got into this. And I think it then took even more of a life, for the younger guys, is like, they were more on the age of Sean, right? So it's like you're living like Sean in his whole sphere, right? It's like, and they're like kind of like, well, this is like the antithesis of Sean in a way. Even though like we were all kind of friends, it was like a way to kind of like get back, I would say.
I got you. I follow.
Even if it was subconscious, right? It was just like a bond. Like, dude, it sucks showing up and someone's always winning. Like it just does, right? Especially when they're like not hanging out all the time. And Sean was cool. I mean, he brought my kid a present when she was born, and we hung out tons, but it was still like everyone just has their own journey for it. So Friends was more of a sticker company, and then it was like towards the end or / the beginning, it was like, let's make this real, right? So like we kind of knew like you mentioned, like you saw Wildcats and whoever, like you're like, oh, we could actually like make something here, right?
Yeah.
Granted, we were probably delusional, right? Like, oh yeah, cool, we're gonna make a company.
I don't think so. It seemed like it took off right away, didn't it? Just do exponential growth, like year 1, year 2, year 3.
Yeah, because this goes back to like because we were constantly on TV, in magazines, and had this influence in that sphere, like, other companies are paying you 6 figures to put a sticker, and you have somebody that's going to champion, you have 7 people that are going to champion something, like they own it because they do.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity there, right? But I think a lot of, it working was just more the ethos behind it in a time period of snowboarding and championing. To me, that's the purity of snowboarding, is like you're like crew. Yeah. And then it came to a point where like, let's do something with this, right? And it was like, oh, we could do goggles. No, because we all have sponsors. And then basically my partner, who we brought on, and I'd known him for about 20 years. He was a team manager at Burton. and Gravis. We brought him on to kind of like add structure to it, and he came up with the idea like, hey, why don't we do headphones, right? And it was right at the time where like Skull Candy was, I think they valued it like 200 million and never made a headphone. It was all OEM from China. Beats was just getting ready to launch. So like they were like, dude, we can like make a better headphone than somebody that just OEMs it from China. And that's kind of like where we jumped in and just, kind of anchored the ethos around the product.
So your business partner is the guy who started Red Helmets.
Well, the chairman of our board is the guy that.
Okay, chairman of your board. So he knows how to do this stuff,
100%.
Right? Like he knows how to source good shit.
Everything.
Get the designers. You guys design it yourself? Like,
yeah.
You guys were cool enough to look and go, hey, these are headphones for snowboarding.
Well, we weren't putting.
We use them.
We weren't putting like pen to paper, but it was, we worked with Ricardo. He worked at Burton, right? He's like, and he has still to this day a crazy design firm. So we went to him and we're brought up same process as Burton, right? Like, here's what we think is cool. Yeah. Let's make our version of it.
Cool.
But again, like anything, that's a lot of industry people that had done it, that believed in the sport of snowboarding / us to like figure out and help us make it happen.
That's right. Yeah, I don't want to glaze over that. That is a big part of snowboarding. Hey, like bring in something that's functioning, that works. Like just make this and tweak it a little, please.
Well, everything, right? I mean, it's everything's a remix, right? Like nothing's new. So
yeah. I mean, because when it is, it's hard fucking work, right? And you miss the mark a bunch of times. And then someone takes your thing, your Burton board, and goes, oh, make one of these, but like this.
Totally.
And then that's the way it works.
Yeah.
It's the way it's always worked. So with the structure and with the group of dudes was there a buy-in? Was there like a meeting where you guys were like, okay, let's put in X amount and then we all own the company like equally or something?
Yeah, so we did first it was a sticker company. It's like, oh cool, we're making a company. Yeah. And then it's all of a sudden like we got to put seed capital in this, right? So everyone's, I think it was like 20 or 30 grand per person. And it was based upon pro rata what the ownership was. Yeah. That's also where the decisions of like, hey, you're an athlete and people are going to run it. There needs to be a certain amount of ownership split here. And we did it on scales of success the company had to do, and we overthought everything. Had conversations with Andy Latz of like, he's like, partnerships are destined to fail, and basically here's why, and kind of gave us some metaphors to think about. And I mean, we try to do everything you could possibly do to make it not implode. But when you have 8 people, it's hard.
Right. What's the trajectory? How does it explode, and then how does it implode?
I mean, we had initial successes for men's. We were in all the Zoomies. It was working.
That's big.
It was. I think we did. Maybe we did like $1 million or something like that in that year. But it was also the time when like Sony had launched a brand. There was Peak. There was Soul. There was so many headphone companies coming into the space, but also coming into like the action sports youth lifestyle space.
Right.
So that's when. I just remember like being like, we need to figure out a way to actually like be different, right? The whole reason we got into this is like, we want to be creative, we want to be different, right? And we can make a better headphone, and all of a sudden it's like everyone's making headphones geared towards guys. And that's when it came up with the idea like half the world's women, they're using the same devices that cause us to wear headphones called iPads, iPods, phones.
Yeah.
I mean, if we made like a really cool like women's headphone, and we could keep the ethos of like friends and the camaraderie of what it means, but gear it towards women, we might have something here.
And you didn't think at all, there's no women in this group?
No, because this was already now a year and a half, 2 years into it, and like lots of money.
Okay.
Right. Like we'd already raised money. I had already put a lot of money into it. Like there's
like
now it's more, and I'm not saying that's a good decision, but now it's more just business.
Got
like
you.
meaning like there's lots of cash in here, and like it's not fully working, and we need to like, like it's snowboarding. Like we want to win. We want to like do something dope.
We need a hit. Like we need something that's gonna sell.
That has a chance to win.
Yeah. There you go.
And the idea seemed to make sense, and we got an insane designer, this guy Jerome Maj, he had actually done the one Skull Candy headphone that was like the best they've ever done. He's like an insane fashion designer. He understood the vision behind how do we like infuse jewelry, accessories into like basically an accessory that women would want to wear if it didn't play audio, right? Like something that still had those the language. And we pitched Apple and it worked, and pitched Best Buy and it worked, and we were like, oh shit, like we're gonna like this is gonna be gnarly, and got investors, and it was taking off for sure.
Yeah.
Along the way, though, we blew up the balance sheet and got overextended and, launched in all doors Apple and didn't do any channel marketing and had to pull the product back. So, I mean, it was a crazy ride, the whole journey, right? And we had 3 billionaires on our cap table, and just the level of where we were functioning at was definitely life zapping. And then even at the time, when I think back now, I wasn't snowboarding. I'd stopped doing X Games hosting. The thing that I fell in love with snowboarding was the purity of the mind and the calming and this even just recently when I went, I was like, oh, this is what I love about snowboarding. It's just you're present.
Yeah.
It's
yes.
It's life giving. When you're in the thick of it, you let that stuff slide. And, so not only are you not probably tapped into the belief systems and also what you're doing and the reason that you're doing it, now you're this business guy, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I'm some business guy, right? I sat in a seat.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like it zapped your, it started wiring you weird, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, especially when you're my life savings is in this, right? I put $1 million into Friends.
Damn.
That to be vaporized, that's not a great pill. You're going to, at least for me, I'm going to die to not let that happen.
Sure.
Does that make you do dumb decisions and bad calls? 100%.
Yeah. So what are some of these bad calls? Because I really honestly don't know.
Well, I think number one, business-wise, pivoting Friends to women's made 100% of sense. It was total sense.
Yeah.
We should just did a different company.
Yeah.
Right. Why did we take the equity of, or why did I take the equity of Friends that I'm not going to use any bit of it towards marketing it into the women's fashion space? Why didn't I just, in hindsight, I would have kept Friends be used lifestyles and I just started another company under the same umbrella even. Because there's just, it undermined the whole aspect of why we got into doing it. Right. Of camaraderie with your friends and
were there some
all this stuff, right?
Were some of the friends at each other's throats over this decision? I
don't know if they're at their throats, they're at my throat.
Yeah.
What the fuck did you just do?
Oh, gotcha.
And I get it, right? But at the time you're oh, it's about making money. And I think, and even in the beginning it was well, dude, we just literally, here's the investors we got. We landed Apple and Best Buy. We're landed, we have these collaborations. It's working.
Yeah.
So I think it was that mellowed it. They're okay, fuck, you stole our company. And okay, at least it's working. Maybe we'll get it, it'll work in the end.
Yeah.
But it was still it was raw, right?
Yeah.
In hindsight, definitely raw. Mm-hmm. I think that was that to me was one of that was the hardest one in hindsight because it just created a divide. Everything from there on is just, it's a business.
Yeah.
Business wise, I think we were functioning off of the model of create a brand that's full of air, meaning you're constantly raising money, building brand, which it works. It works when everything works, but if something breaks because you're inflating everything, meaning you're not making money every year. You're constantly just raising money. So when your balance sheet gets messed up, you're kind of done.
You're toast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we were toast.
And you went through a lot of shit because of this, right? You get away from snowboarding, and personally, your personal life starts to suffer.
Yeah, I mean, I had a daughter that I wasn't a father to, and I got divorced, and I got hooked on drugs, and then I lost $1 million, and then I got sued 3 times, and I had to sell my house down to zero to pay all the lawsuits. Yeah, I mean, it's a complete nightmare. Right?
Who sues you? Who are the people on these lawsuits?
One of our investors, one of the athletes, which was total bullshit, and then Nordstrom.
Oof.
Yeah.
On just not delivering a PO or something.
It was a total bullshit. We were factoring our inventory through a third party because our balance sheet was messed up, so we had to leverage another relationship to actually purchase inventory. At the end, I ended up buying that company, so I owned both.
Oh wow!
Which then Nordstrom, there was something that got messed up with the accounting of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And they're dude, you're the CEO of both. You're trying to be a weasel here. They put 8 counts of fraud on me.
Oh wow!
And I was overly open about everything, an idiot. Talking to them at Nordstrom, I'm listen, we have no money. The other company has no money.
Oh,
I have no money. So they're cool. Fraud's not dismissible, right? So they're cool. We get you on fraud. It doesn't matter if you have no money. You'll spend the rest of your life paying for it. So there was just idiot maneuvers as a rookie of me being oh yeah, I'll be open about everything. It'll be helpful. It's no, shut your mouth.
Yeah, and you're not saying on mic to lie to people. You're just hey, look, don't expose yourself. Right?
Yeah, I mean, just stupid stuff, right?
Yeah.
Simple stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it was, and even that, like, it's up until then, no matter what the scenario was, there was always like a way out. Like there was always a, you know, in any aspect of life, like work harder, figure out a way. And this was like the first time ever where it was like, there's no way out. Like in, I was like, I'll die to make it happen. And I almost died to make it happen. Right. But it didn't. Right. So I think that was in hindsight, that'd be the other one of like, it would have been nice to have just let it die. Right. Like at the time it's inconceivable. You're like, what do you mean? How could you do that? And it's like, dude, like,
yeah, here we are 5 years out. Right.
Totally.
And it's completely, you know,
who cares?
Who cares?
Right?
You can only stress so much. Like you're telling me this about the lawsuits and everything, and I'm thinking about the time I was fired from the post office. I just went in. They said, "Hey, what's this mail?" I said, "I didn't deliver it. I didn't feel like it." They said, "Okay, well, you're fired then." And I mean, every guy and girl that worked there who delivered mail didn't say like, "Oh my God, you hid mail? Like, what are you, an idiot?" They said, "Where did you hide it?" They said, "Hey, listen, what you're supposed to do is, what you got to do is this and that." And everybody told me their own little way of hiding it. I wasn't hiding it at all. And it's like, oh shit, now I'm fired. I got to get my job back. It was a real pain in the ass, man. My kids are making fun of me. You got fired for not delivering the mail? That's the only thing you have to do as a mailman, isn't it? It's one thing. But I as I get older, I see everything through the lens of an experience is an experience, right? Having a kid is a really, really big experience. Losing your job is not quite that big, but it's a big experience. Doesn't matter whether the thing is super positive or super negative. It's the energy of having an experience. That's why we're here. Yeah. I think that's my guess, because sitting around doing nothing or numbing yourself to experience, it's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. I agree. But I think in hindsight, right, the numbing is needed to be able to process the shock value of things. Like, it's not, I think, just even recently where it's like processing it enough to being like, okay, like the energetic level of it. You know, like, even when I moved back here, I was like, dude, you literally like had millions of dollars and it's like vaporized. Yeah. Like, and it's not like I just pissed it away on like some stupid things. Like I was trying to be smart. So I think there's a level of like, and for me, my dad died. He had $0 in his bank account. And I was like, dude, I never want to go out like that. Where like he died at 59. If he had lived another 20 years, it would have been horrible in the sense of just like no cash. Right. So it's like, I had always been like, I want to be smart with my money. I want to do this. So then to like, wake up and you're 40 and you have no money, you worked your entire life, everything, every competition, everything, and it's gone, is, to me, there's a lot of just like guilt, shame, like how the heck do I get off this planet? And if I'm not trying to get off this planet, meaning kill myself, like I need to numb it to function, right? Like, and by the way, like you literally lost all your friends and you've like pissed away everything, and like, you know, like whether it's merited or not, it's like, I created an environment that was pretty unlivable, right? So it's like numbing then works, right? It's like it's the only way I think to function. Yeah, I mean I can't believe how smiley you are while you're talking about it now. Like, and I don't read any nervousness in this at all. Like you're not like worried about what you're saying. You're not worried about that. Losing the millions of dollars and you got a big smile on your face. It's like you've come to terms with it somehow. Most people would never. I think we don't have a choice though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could kill yourself. I mean, that's an option. Luckily, I'm not wired that way. Good for you, man. I also think that when you're numb, you're not thinking that way. You're thinking, how can I get fucked up? That's true.
Right? I know it's both sad, but it's the survival mechanism. Yeah. Right? We all fuck up.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Like there's a million times like that, like, and it was cool to even hear Sean like in the video, the Jake video is like, you know, like with the fire extinguisher, like that could have like ended his career. But like we're also in a sport, especially where we come from of like the older gen, it's like we were counterculture. We were literally on the fringes. Like it was like we were doing this not to be cool. We were doing this because we felt called to, and we wanted to be around like-minded people that also fell in love with the sport that could like you could be individual, you could still be individual, but like doing it with people, like that's the essence. So now like we're gonna judge people because of other things, when really like all those things were the reason that brought us together back in the day.
Absolutely.
Right? So
I think there is something there too of exposing young athletes to a lifestyle that maybe you're not ready for. There's no, it requires a lot of mentorship, but if you as a person, as the adult in the room, don't already know your own shit, you don't have your own demons taken care of, you can really do some fucking damage, man, introducing people to different, especially if people look up to you. Like, hey, that cool guy's doing the cool thing or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's, how you say... I mean, as somebody that's been through rehab, right? So meaning like,
yeah,
I understand the implications of it. I think there's a level of like, there's some ownership there, but then there's also like, I think we have to also just own it ourselves. Like, you're trying to tell me at 19, I don't know that if like, or 21 or whenever, I don't know that doing this is going to be bad for me. Like, I'm weighing the odds. Yes, maybe somebody that I think is cool is doing it, and I'm trying to do it. Like, there's just, would it be cool if people could do that? Yes. But I think also, like, when you're at that top echelon, you're also just living your life. So you create your circle. And if people want to come into that circle, that's kind of like, you don't have to, right? Like, Dave Downing wasn't doing drugs, right? Like, it's such,
sure,
you could be a grown boy.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
It's, so I for me, like, I just, especially growing up, like, I wanted to do drugs. Like, I didn't want to be a drug addict, but I wanted to go doing parties. So like, I can't sit back and be like, oh yeah, that's like bad influence by that person. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? I don't know.
No, I totally know what you mean. It's the same. I mean, I took acid when I was like 15 or 16. I read the Doors of Perception. I thought, this sounds fucking cool. And I've never gone away from it. Luckily, I discovered psychedelics early on, because I think if I would have found anything else, my tendencies to like have an addictive personality.
Yeah. Well, I think most people do, right? Like snowboarders, athletes, or like poker players. Like, our profile is designed for like addiction in that, right? Like, you have to do like a quad flip. You got to be addicted to like to get there, right?
Yeah, yeah, because it's insane otherwise.
Totally.
Like, the whole way there is insane. I mean, I remember somebody talking about surfing big waves. I think it was my friend Sean, and he says, when he comes in from the beach, people just go like, "Are you insane?" He goes, "No, actually, I'm not insane. It's like a lot of baby steps to get to where I'm at." Yeah. So not ever was I in a place where I was just taking an uncalculated, insane risk. Yeah. I think
no, because if you do, I would, especially in sports, like the crazy ones have 2-year careers.
Michael Chuck.
Well, his career was longer. He also got screwed in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he did get hurt too. He got badly hurt,
and then he got bought and then benched. Right? Like, there's a lot.
Benched.
Like,
that's bad.
He probably brings the most pain when I think of a career, because number one, I snowboarded with him and I loved him.
Yes,
but like, he also has some crazy stories of like just things that you're like, that shouldn't ever happen to any human, right? On like, just to even be like, oh yeah, cool, ride for Bert, and then we're gonna bench you, or like at the Olympics, like his run, like he's like, before I dropped and I looked down, and there's like, my strap was cut, right, and like.
Cut.
He's like razor cut. It's like,
who the hell would do that?
Who knows, right? But that's kind of our
sport,
the
bottom
right?
Of this.
Like,
who the fuck would do that? That's an insane thing.
Some purist that doesn't want double chucks, right? Like, I'm like, whatever. It's the sport.
Wow. See, that's a cool guy thing again. We're bumping up into it again, because I can remember thinking that the Michael Huck was, and he didn't want it to be called that.
I'm sure no one ever wants it to be
Heave
called after
ho.
him.
He wanted it to be called the Heave Ho. But
now people are doing, like Taylor Gold, I just saw doing it, right? Like, now, 12 years later, 15 years, 20 years later, now they're doing it, right? Like, okay, he was doing it switch and regular.
It's insane. Right? Yeah, he was nuts, and bigger than anyone had ever seen anyone go in a pipe before.
Totally.
Like, it was completely nuts what he was doing.
But like any industry, there's tons of politics, right?
Oof.
You could also just not care.
Right.
And that's what's cool about this day and age too, where like you could not care, and because you're able to control outlets with Instagram, YouTube, whatever, like you can just run it.
Yeah.
Right.
It seemed like Brushy didn't care. Did you get that vibe? Like, when he was going to contests, was he like stressing before the contest?
I think he was stressing.
He was stressing.
You'd have to ask him, but
I will ask him.
I think to me, the gift and the curse of like becoming known is you can easily fall into the trap of like not improving because people are like, oh wait, why is Keir learning front tens? Like, really, he doesn't have that trick already? Like, I can do that trick. That kid sucks. And then you're like, do I really want to do that under the chairlift at Mammoth, like all day training, right? And it's like the sick, twisted like thing where you're like, you start to believe the hype, like, oh wow, I should know that trick, but fuck, I don't.
Right. So how do you? So where do you go to learn it? Right. That always struck me about Sean. Like, dude, it makes sense, man. He's got his own private places where people can't see what he's doing. He can try anything he wants. He doesn't have any distractions. Like, he was taking it very, very seriously. I thought, what's wrong with that? But then he's not integrating into the group. You could even see it at the end of the Jake movie where he left a space between him and everybody that dropped in at the pipe. There was a space. I mean, it made me cry to see him ride for Jake like that. Like, it just seemed like he wasn't contest Sean. He was just riding to ride.
Yeah.
You know?
I
don't know.
I'm biased because I'm a Sean fan. I wouldn't pull that, but I also didn't win. I also wasn't a competitor. He was, right? So like for me, I look at it as like in most sports, the top person would go do something like that, right? Like you would train so people can't see. You could pull out tricks. Like it just that's called being pro. Like, I don't know. I think where people give shit to him is like he created a stage where he could have really elevated the sport and gave back and done a lot more. Like even with Virgil passing, I don't know if you're familiar with him or like follow him at all, but like his influence and impact across so many cultures and industries, and like his always reaching back and educating and trying to help, like a constantly like I'm the best by you being better, right? Where Sean's ethos wasn't that. Where I think that is the one where it would have been cool to see how leveraged in a different way he could have changed the sport and been like the man instead of like kind of hated.
Yeah. I mean, most people I talk to about Sean have a really deep respect for the level of
you can't not
riding that he did.
You
right?
Can't
like
not,
you
right?
see it and you're like, yeah, holy shit, this guy. But then like talking with Mikey Reds, and I mean they were on the team the same time, they're the same age, and you know they couldn't have gone differently.
Totally
couldn't have gone further apart in the community versus, I guess, champion. Well, again, I'm not calling out Mikey, because Mikey kicks ass.
No, for sure, just different paths.
Yeah, totally, and right into the backcountry too, which is just, I mean, I don't know. So you've said a couple of times you didn't really have much backcountry, like that wasn't your.
I mean, I tried, right? I moved to Whistler. I mean, I moved to North Vancouver.
Oh, yeah.
I lived there for 2 years.
I forgot
Grouse.
about that.
It was
crazy.
Insane.
That's so nuts.
Yeah, it was some of my best powder days were at Grouse.
Yeah. It's so fun.
But it was, for me, there was always just a fear, right? Like it's, and I remember like even just going out with like Devin and Trev and Browner, and it's like, it was just a different world. Like I remember one time we went out, it was the time that Devin blew his teeth out. It was like probably 7:30 in the morning, front seven off this massive cliff, hits his knee on his chin, and teeth explode. And I was just like, and then he's got a concussion. We're driving. I was like, oh my God, like this is what filming is. Kind of like, are you serious? Like, get me the hell out of here. But then it's also like you're with Devin, who's like, no, it's cool, man. It's mellow. It's like, sipping his coffee. And it's like, oh, you got noticed before. It's like, oh, it's cool, man. Don't even stress about it. Like, just do this. And it's like, so I loved it. And, going out with Anthony Vitale, and just like, there was good people that were trying to make it happen. But I mean, that's when snowboarding, at least for me, is like, if you want to be good at pipe, you got to like focus and do it. Right. And like this idea of like wanting to go film and try to get some shots for Dogger and stuff was like, I did it because Burton wanted me to do it, and it was fun, but it wasn't like my happy place.
I got you.
Right. When you're out there like stressing over some like 15-foot cliff.
Yeah.
And you're like, like a bunny hill, right?
Yeah,
you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm gonna die. I feel like I'm gonna get exactly. It's like even if I do my best trick, it's getting cut.
That sucks. I was talking with Devin the other day about just sledding and how Mikey Rentz told Mikey Cicerelli, like, dude, you got to enjoy the whole process, right? Like loading your truck and getting up there, like make sure you're enjoying it the whole way through. And I was telling that to Devin, like, and Devin's like, what do you mean? I'm like, oh, I'm gripped. Like, I hate loading my truck. I hate driving there. I hate parking. I hate getting the sled off. I hate going up the mountain. I hate everything except the snowboarding. He goes, yeah, I mean, I only want to snowboard too, but you gotta love the whole thing, right?
Totally.
Like he's like, dude, you don't stop in Squamish and get some French fries or something? Like, you, come on. He seems to have thrived in the backcountry. It was like any day he went back there. That's what he said. Any day he went sledding was like the best day of his life. Yeah, he loved it.
Well, when you're that good and you're always landing tricks, it fucking should be good days. It's not hard to have them be good days.
Yeah,
but no, I definitely sensed it, right? Like I said, like I picture him sitting on his like sled, like pouring a cup of coffee, just like, yeah, man. I'm like at the office.
He's in his zone.
Yeah.
He's in his zone, right? And you're out there like me, like being like, shit, man, we got to go all the way back that way. Yeah. How am I going to get down that thing that I just took 10 times to get up? Come on.
Yeah.
What are we doing here? Yeah, I'm looking forward to it being better this year. I'm already excited.
No, for sure.
Yeah,
I need to get my Epic Pass.
Yeah. Where did you go? Where did you go snowboarding last year?
I went up to World Supers at Squaw, which was cool. Slash, it brought me up to that. And that was just rad because it was like Chris Roach was there, and like the old guys, and like the young kids were there, and it was a quarter pipe, which is kind of an equalizer. Even though it wasn't like the best quarter, I was like, "Fuck this!" It had been 8 years.
So 8 years,
and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so fun!" And then I went home and then went back up to Mammoth to shred with Virgil and Russell and the K2 crew. And that was like when all the pipe shreds were there because they had like the US team pipe. And it was like perfect pipe. All my old homies were there.
No way.
Magical days. It was like 60 degrees. And then went back up again with my family just to like teach them and stuff, which was awesome. It was just like many things in life. Like when you haven't done it for a while, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is magical. Like just like man. The ADD, like kind of calming down and being one with nature, and like there's such a magicness with snowboarding, right? And like creating and doing slashes and like pushing yourself and whatever it is, right? Like it's there's no better feeling,
dude. It's the best. I love it. I can't believe you took 8 years off. What the hell were you thinking? Gonna be rich. No, you want to be powder rich, man.
I was trying not to die.
Ah, dude. No. Yeah, that's insane. Hey, you mentioned ADD. Did you have a diagnosis of that when you were a kid?
Not when I was a kid. I have dyslexia and ADD. That was later. A psychiatrist, and then I went on like meds, and then I went on all kinds of different meds of like dealing with anxiety and taking like what's it? Antidepressant pills, because if you can get to a certain level, you can't have anxiety. So like this is when I was actually doing like TV work. I was trying to get to like some dose, like 15 milligrams or something, and I got to like 2, and it felt like my brain was imploding.
Wow.
But it was like, once you start going down that path, which is why I'm pro cannabis now on so many things, like it's just constantly trying to put band-aids on things. Like, oh cool, you're like you suffer from anxiety, cool, let's not teach you how to breathe, let's like put you on some like antidepressants.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
like you're like, oh my gosh. But no, so I was diagnosed then, which was it was cool to like go, oh, that's why in school certain things, or that's why like learning this way is hard. But I also appreciated not learning early, because I didn't feel like I was able to look back and go, cool, there's like a superpower in there, because clearly certain things are hard but other things are easy, as opposed to like pre-labeling it before I was blessed to find some gifts.
Yeah, right? Dude. Cool. Yeah. I didn't find out I was dyslexic until I became a mailman. They really should screen for that, dude. There's a lot of angry people in Vancouver getting the wrong mail. It happens all the time. This isn't mine. Somebody coming running down the street. This isn't mine. I'm like, oh, fuck. I chose the wrong career, man.
Well, I mean, for me, even TV, like my reading is better now, but I remember doing teleprompter and like reading live and sounding normal, I couldn't do. Right, that's like a tough, like you're choosing a career where you got to read teleprompter, but you can't read really, like, wow. It's, right, like it's like, I mean, those things,
like imposter syndrome, like supreme, right? Would that have given you?
Well, I don't even know if it's imposter syndrome. It was just like, fuck.
You're like, I'm not supposed to be.
You're like, what am I doing? Yeah, here,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
Kind of like, no, I mean, if it's live and you're just reacting, that's easy, but it's it's good to know why to understand reasons behind why that could be, right? Because then you're like, cool, like whatever, like yeah, it's hard for me. I got to put in more work, whatever.
Yeah, that's dope. Yeah. I brought up the imposter syndrome because most people that become pro snowboarder have it somewhere along the line. It seems like you didn't get it. Like that you worked your ass off and you were as good as you're going to sponsor me next year. Yeah, it happened. Like as opposed to like some people show up at the contest going like, why am I even here? Like I'm not that good. This fucking sucks. It's a lot of pressure. Why did I sell this bill of goods to this company that I was going to do something that I clearly can't fucking do? But it doesn't seem like you had that at all until maybe with the business thing.
No, so for snowboarding, definitely not, in the sense of, I think because in my delusioned mind, I was still never getting what I wanted, right? So even for like my Burton contracts, like my last 3 years, I made a ton of money, but my base was like nothing. And then it was just all on incentives, so like covers, TV, like, which is partly why I got into TV. I was like, oh, cool, you're going to pay me how much per minute of TV? Oh, great, I'm going to be on TV. Like, there was no stipulation of like, hey, it needs to be like a snowboarding TV. It's like, oh, I'm a host now, right? Like, it's like,
that's dope.
All that was like, so for me, it was, when someone tells you, oh, we're going to pay you X amount, and then you go buy a house, and like, actually, we're not even going to pay you 10% of what we said. To me, I never felt imposter because I'm like, dude, like, I always felt like I was trying to earn it. And then in business, it wasn't so much, I wouldn't say it was imposter syndrome. I just always wanted to like, and this is probably why I stripped away snowboarding. Like I just wanted to be, I guess maybe it's imposter. I wanted to be legit. Like I didn't question my capabilities. It was just, I liked that, I don't know, business felt more binary. Like you do something, it either works or it doesn't work. Like in TV hosting, I didn't like it because it's kind of like, oh, cool, we like you because you have brown hair, right? Or whatever it is, right? It's kind of like, it felt a little bit more like subjective, where business felt a little more like you kind of do it or you don't. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't felt it.
So, okay. So getting back to the psychiatrist diagnosis, how do you know to go to a psychiatrist? Like, do you have an episode where you're like, holy shit, I got to go see someone? Or is it like a judge says like, you need to go see someone?
No. Wow. I don't think I actually have ever shared it. So I was at X Games. I just finished up the week. We were out partying that night. I was already doing drugs at the time. Some kid, it was actually a really weird scenario because some kid came out to me. He's like, dude, yeah, you're a Christian. I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, dude, blah, blah, blah. Like, 4 hours later, I'm like, yo, does anyone know who has some ecstasy? And literally I bought it from that kid. I was like, this is like a weird universe God thing. Like, why? Like it ended up being some bunk stuff. I like went on some crazy binge. I had to fly back to LA to host a TV show for Fuel TV. It was Action Sports Plus, to do a recap on X Games. My brain would not work. Like literally, like 2 days later, show up to film live. Can't even barely say my name because I'm so messed up on drugs. But like in a this isn't going away feeling, right? Like I'm potentially gone, brain cracked. Ended up going back to like they were cool to like, let's try again tomorrow. Woke up again tomorrow. Could barely like be spoon fed. Just like 5 lines took probably like all day.
Wow.
Like I feel so bad for the people that I put through to even like have to deal with that. That ended up then. Clearly, my brain doesn't work. It's broken. I have to go see a psychiatrist. And that's when she's like, oh, yeah, by the way, this happens when you're like 16 or like when you're 30-something. And yeah, you cracked your brain. And
wow,
that's when it was like, and then anything with like panic attacks and anxiety. And then that was the whole like going down that wormhole.
So you had never had that. Like you're not sitting at the top of a pipe having a panic attack, giving yourself a pep talk.
I had always struggled with like nerves. Right, of just like
normal nerves. There's a lot of people watching. I don't want to break my legs in front of all these people.
I don't want to suck. But
I don't want to suck, sure.
But like not, like panic attack. And then you're talking like, so then I'm planning like 6 months out, like, okay, live TV. Like, what happens if my brain stops on live TV? It's like, if you've ever done like live TV, it's like 3 seconds is eternity. And then you're back to like, not imposter syndrome, but you're signing up for this like,
yes,
I'm the guy.
Yeah.
Right. So then I'm like, okay, how do I like not fuck this up? Okay, you say I can take antidepressants. That's gonna make me not like, feel this. Okay, let's try that. That sucked. Like, so I just went down a whole rabbit hole.
Yeah.
but it all stemmed back from just basically blowing my brains up on drugs. Like, I was having panic attacks. I was losing my mind, right? I also don't think that I had ever really faced some things to like help snap me into reality. Like, it's pretty easy to get your money, you have success, like it's pretty easy to start believing just some crazy things, right? Of like whether that's entitlement or whatever it is. So it's just like being able to get rubbed back at least the first little bit. It wasn't enough. I mean, that came later in life, but you can get out there pretty easily. So I think she helped. It just would have been cool a little bit more of like you can actually breathe. Like there's this thing called like breath work. Yeah. And there's this thing called like meditation. And there's like, you can take other natural, remedies to help create that in your state. Right, like it was more like, oh, cool. You're having a panic attack. Boom, sign you up. Here's some Klonopin.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Here's some antidepressants.
Exactly.
You're like,
exactly.
So that's where it's horrible looking back.
Do you have any quick breathing things that worked for you? If you don't, I've got one.
I mean, I do like fire breath or box breathing.
So what's box breathing? I think
box
that's
breathing
is
just kind of like where like you breathe in. Like it could be any amount of seconds. Like in 4 seconds, pause, out 4 seconds.
Yeah,
right?
That's the one I do.
Picture in a box. Like it could be 10 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever.
I was hiking up Cypress and I got to the midpoint and my heart was going like a million miles a minute. I did box breathing and within like 30 seconds I was like baseline. It felt like. Yeah, and it really, really works in anxiety situations for me personally. Yeah. Absolutely. I just want listeners to have something to go to if they're in the early stages of wondering like, wait, do I need to go see someone about this anxiety, and knowing if you're going to plunge onto that conveyor belt of drugs, that it can be, I'm not a doctor. So like listen to your doctor, listen to your therapist, do that thing. But there are alternatives out there that work for people for sure.
Yeah. And it's like, I think a lot of it is the mindset, right? So like, as you were talking, I was remembering of like, my agent exposed me to doing yoga, and I was like, why would I go do yoga for an hour? Like, I'll go hammer on a treadmill for an hour, right? Yeah. It was like a very cocky type A, like, and the same thing. I remember going to doctors like not that long ago, meaning like whatever, like 5 years ago, but like post career and being like, okay, so I want my Adderall and I want my Klonopin, and then being like, you're pulling your brain in two different directions, right? It's like this isn't good, and I'm my attitude was like, screw you. I paid you my $90. Write me my prescription. Yep. I'm doing me. Right. Yeah. It's like that. Yeah. Like, and like, there is an arrogance and a cockiness that now when I look back, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like no wonder you're so sideways, dude. Like the doctor told you like, this is like not smart. Right. And as like a kid that just kind of things that always works, like, yeah, whatever. Right. So it's, to me, I think for listeners, it's like, if you're in that place of like, there's amazing aspects of some humility and like trusting that maybe some other people have lived it and like have some scenarios that maybe it didn't work out and maybe there's something to learn there, right? Like, yeah. And nowadays, I think even just in the last 5 years, right, there's a massive amount of like education and like you can go on YouTube, type anything and learn. Like that wasn't there 10 years ago, right? Like it's like your ability to have access to educate yourself just wasn't there, right?
It seems like from the outside looking at your story that there was a lot of camaraderie and connection for your adolescence, your youth, and your early adulthood. And then it got real lonely there for a bit. Like you kind of isolated yourself, not on purpose, but just the circumstances brought you to this kind of more isolated spot.
Yeah, I think that was the learning I needed to go through, right? As a kid, my parents had a decade-long divorce of like literally trying to kill each other. We lived on the same mountain, so my dad lived at the top, my mom lived in the middle, 100 acres. Like it was literally my mom trying to like run my dad over. Like it was just like stuff that you're like, wow, that would not really fly today. Yeah. So as a kid, it's like that was BMX, skateboarding, and snowboarding was like the escape, right? It was like that safe, like you said, camaraderie, some older kids learning, experiencing. So like that kept me for so long, and then TV, and then hosting and business. And then when things started to implode, you're right, because like number one, you're doing drugs, you're relationships are falling apart through business. Like before you know it, you're literally a single unit, right? And in every aspect of life was camaraderie. It was team. It was shared passions. But I think, and then I'm in Austin delivering food for DoorDash. Brain doesn't work because I just got off Klonopin. I'm trying to get sober finally for rehab, right? Like all these things, but it was still a magical time when I look back because I can, number one, see how people don't make it out. 100% my brother saved me because he had a place for me to go live. If it wasn't for that, I would have been done. It's very humbling, and you can see the blessings, and you can have the gratitude. And even just coming off Klonopin slowed my brain enough to not want to be doing drugs, right? It was my brain couldn't function fast enough to be like, hey, I want to go do drugs.
Wow.
My brain was like, dude, this is like snail speed.
Yeah.
So within that, I needed that for me personally. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but I needed that humbling feeling, and then to just literally relearn everything over. It's like snowboarding in that journey taught me so many things, but it's almost like relearning it, right? Whether it's business, whether it's branding, whether it's friendship, whether it's integrity, whether it's you're like, holy cow, it's literally day one. But whatever, right? It's that's life. Like I said, I don't think there's people that don't make it through that, right?
Mm-hmm. It's a huge experience, right? It's a huge experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even, I was a douchebag dad, right? I was a horrible husband. So if I think back, if I hadn't imploded things, would I still be married? And would it all in a negative though? My ex still dealing with me, and my kids not having a dad, or I know that through all that I can be a much better husband and father, and all these things, right?
Yeah.
So you don't really want to go down that path to get there.
No.
But
no.
Anyone that's gone through it
losing $1
understands.
million, dude. I was just in Vegas yesterday by happenstance, whatever the hell
Did you
that
gamble?
is. Oh yeah,
You did?
$200 out right away, gone.
Yeah.
Another 100. I'm like, this is the max, because that's almost 500 Canadian dollars. Gone, just gone, man.
What'd you play?
I was in the airport, so I just.
You're playing slots? You paid hundreds of dollars on slots?
Can you believe that shit?
You deserve to lose.
I know.
You're not old enough. When you're 65, then you can play slots. And they'll maybe pay you.
You know what? I have a note in my phone right now that I'm allowed to gamble again in 2 years or something, because I was gambling too much back in Vancouver.
I was going to say, I played there.
On slots.
I played a bunch there.
Yeah. My game is roulette, man.
Yeah.
Once you have a system, you're fucked. That's what it comes down to.
Totally.
When you have a system, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
You're going to lose, and you're going to lose every time, and you're going to lose big, dude.
Well, that's the gift of poker, right? Is that you're not playing the house, you're playing other people, right?
That's true.
That's the ultimate,
that is true.
Trap for people that weren't really that good. Is I'm not actually playing the house. I can win, actually.
Yeah.
No, you can't because you suck.
But you can win. You could get better. Brushy's pretty good, I've heard.
Yeah. I think he's a grinder. He also plays 21. I don't think he plays poker.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But it's, I think as an athlete, gambling, back to the profiles, right? Because there was a time when we were doing full tilt poker tournaments, and the online gambling was going on, and they were trying to tap into youth lifestyle.
Yep.
And hanging out with Negrano and gnarly people, right?
Those dudes.
But they're all cool. They're all just like us,
Same.
Some crazy kids that basically the industry, kind of came around them and was validated. But they're we all have the same profiles, right? That's why it's fun to sit at a table and get that urge and feel and put it on the line and right, it's drop it into the pipe or whatever it is, right?
I see it.
You're craving that dopamine hit. Now you just go on Instagram, scroll, but
there's nothing like losing $500 that you can't afford. Oh my God, that's the craziest thing. Winning for me is scary, because I can't give this back. I can't give this back. And then losing it, it's just so satisfying, because it's I have to accept that I lost it. There's no getting it back, because I can't get any more money out of my account. I'm literally at that. That's what's fun for me, man. And so that's why I have to stay away from it.
I think I have a post on my Instagram, and I don't post much, but it was one of a picture of an ATM from 2017. It's something the night's over when when you can't get any more out, right? It's
yeah, that's it. That's I have to go home, and I have to face the fact that I just did that. And tomorrow my kid's going to ask me, hey, can I get a new pair of shoes or a haircut or something? And I'm like, no, we don't have any money for that. Meanwhile, I just spent money on nothing.
Yeah.
On a feeling that's horrible. It's the most horrible, awesome feeling. You know what I mean? Just like, ugh, I get so tangled up in it. I fucking love it. But I that's why I have to put in my phone, I'm not going to do it until later on. I give myself permission later on down the line.
Well, clearly you're recovered if the note in your phone works.
It works sometimes.
There
It
you
didn't.
go.
I took a break because I was in Vegas, right? Come on.
That's
it's
what you always
Vegas.
say.
Yeah. No, if it doesn't work when I go back. No, it's worked for years before.
Yeah.
But then once it's...
But it's like any addiction, right?
Yeah.
It's you have to be careful to taste it, right? It's like,
Yeah.
you know, you just know when you taste it that it tastes good.
Oh, big time. You got to know that shit.
You know,
You got to know yourself. All right, let's finish on where you're going tomorrow, because that kind of wraps it.
you know, my daughter's birthday's on the 28th. My son's on the 2nd, you know, November,
Yeah.
December. And yeah, it's pretty magical to like be in their lives and to see the joy and now they're at the age where I can remember being their age, right? And like thinking about my dad and him taking us up to like ski mountains and like, you know, he had this like old like Eagle, I think was the name of the car, and like
Rad.
going up to like, you know, Hunter Mountain in New York City, and they're like outside New York City, and just remembering that of like, oh wow, like that's me now, like be a father, right? Like
That's dope.
expose them to things. Yeah, and just, you know, be challenged by that. It's pretty rad.
What kind of cool shit are you working on right now? Is there some place that people can go and check out your businesses or anything like that that's going on right now?
Yeah, I just started. It's called Dillon Agency. It's a cannabis branding agency. So I've been working with a bunch of like CBD companies and cannabis companies over the past 2 years. I found huge medicinal benefits. I'm not someone that likes to get high per se, but I do. It helps with anxiety. It helps with sleep. It helps offset my drinking.
Nice.
And it's a pretty rad industry. It just reminds me of snowboarding back in the day, like going to like, you know, SIA or ASR back in the day, and just it's a lot of creatives and like a lot of like nerdy creatives and innovative people and farmers that are like, they're just all out for the plant, kind of like we're all out for snowboarding, and to just bring kind of the experiences of what I've done in both snowboarding and business, and like help with branding and strategy. And it's been fun. It was really rewarding. You know, it's growing a business late in life is different, right? Like you failure's a different beast. But yeah, I'm super grateful. So yeah, whether it's Dillon Agency on Instagram or Keir Dillon, trying to become more social and put it out there a little bit more.
People love you, man. People love you.
I don't know about that, but
No, they do, dude.
It's,
When I talk with people, the guys I've spoken with are like, that guy's the best dude.
oh, thanks,
I
man.
get it. And I said it on the way in here, man. I've done interviews with like 150, 160 people now. You're one of my favorites every time.
Thank you,
There's
man.
something just like magical about you. Like you have a really great energy.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's all the mess ups, right? it helps ground you.
I think it
And,
does.
You know, and also like the sport of snowboarding was, I mean, it's a massive blessing. It was never lost to me even as a kid. Like I grew up in Pennsylvania, middle of nowhere, middle class, lower middle class, but like it's to travel the world and to be around other people and to be exposed to things and to have that ability to tap in Mother Nature and get lost. And like, I mean, it really is an incredible vehicle. And so many life lessons, like just, I don't know, it challenges your thought, right? So I think anyone that's out there snowboarding at any level, right? Like there's such a beauty to it, right? And I think it can be so much more than even we understand, right? And I think that's looking back, right? It's kind of like the relationships that were built. So yeah, I mean, I just have so much to be grateful for.
Yeah, that's sick. Well, I'm going to work on powder core to bring back like a 12-foot pipe or a 14-foot perfect. You know, like get the pipe grinders out there, pipe dragons, make a perfect 14-foot pipe, because I think that would be the great equalizer, right? Like I think these kids that are triple corking, quad corking these days, if they had to ride a 12-foot transition, there's no way they're going to be able to ride it as good as a 22.
Don't hate on the kids.
No, I'm not hating on them. I'm saying I want to see you out there competing against McMorris or something. You know what I mean? Like a master's class, like you and Terrier and Todd and Shannon Dunn and, you know, like the real deal.
The old guys. No, I mean, I rode this summer at Mount Hood. It was super fun. I mean, hood pipes are always sketchy. But Mammoth last year, the 22, it was as perfect as you could get. It was like the first time I hit an airbag legit. Like, it was, I only took like 6 runs.
Yeah.
But it was like, it was good.
You get your blood pumping?
The kids have it good.
Yeah, sick. Oh, so you could ride 22.
Of course. Come on.
All right. Thanks a lot for doing this, dude.
Yeah, no worries.
Great to see you again.
Yeah, you as well.
All right. Peace. FNRad shoutouts this week to Keir Dillon for doing the show a second time. The first time I screwed up the audio, so I vowed to go back and do it again. Thank you, Keir, for being so open about your experiences in snowboarding and starting a company and everything that's happened in your life. Stoked to have Keir Dillon back on the snow, crushing it as always. Extra special thanks to my loving and supportive wife. She's seriously the best. Love you, honey. Be sure to come back next week for another episode of the FNRad Snowboard Podcast, presented by Vans and brought to you by SIA Productions.